All right, so Wynn Resorts. Let's dive into their year-end report. It just came out yesterday, February 13th, 2025.
Yeah.
And we're going to break down their performance over the last quarter and for the whole year of 2024.
You know what's interesting right off the bat?
Yeah.
They're touting a record year for profitability.
Yeah.
But when you look at Q4 revenue, it's flat compared to the same period last year.
It's like flatlining
Right.
a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
So let's get into the numbers.
Sure.
Wynn Resorts brought in $1.84 billion in revenue in Q4 2024.
Okay.
Now, that is the same as Q4 2023.
Right.
So no growth there.
Yeah.
But their adjusted property, EBITDA, hit a record high
Okay.
for the full year of 2024.
Mm.
And Vegas, their Las Vegas operations were a big part of that success story.
So that adjusted property EBITDA
Yeah.
really highlights how crucial that figure is
Yeah.
for companies in the gaming industry. I mean, it's a key indicator of how strong their operations are. So even though revenue was flat for the quarter, that record performance signals that they are still running a pretty tight ship.
Yeah. And Craig Billings, their CEO, he actually addressed this flat revenue directly in the report. And he pointed to those tough comparables in Las Vegas. He's essentially saying, that Q4 of 2023 was already such a strong quarter that matching it in 2024 is still a success.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always about outdoing yourself every single quarter. Sometimes just staying consistent at a high level can be a win.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I found interesting is that he highlighted their strong market share in Macau, especially in the premium mass and VIP segments.
Oh, Macau, the gambling capital of the world.
Yeah.
It seems like they're really going after the high rollers,
exactly,
the big spenders.
Yeah, and that focus on those premium segments, that could lead to higher profits. Instead of attracting, say, 100 casual players, they're attracting 10 who are willing to spend the same amount combined.
Right. So less overhead too, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Less, fewer resources to kind of allocate, and you're focusing your energy on those. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of Macau, Wynn has two properties there, Wynn Palace and Wynn Macau.
Right.
Now looking at Q4 2024 compared to 2023, Wynn Palace actually saw their revenue increase while Wynn Macau saw a decrease.
Interesting.
But hold on to your hats, folks, because both properties actually saw growth.
Wow.
Over the full year.
Yeah, that's a contrast, huh? I mean, the fact that those two properties perform so differently in the same market, definitely something to think about. And if you look at the table games win percentages, specifically comparing the mass market versus the VIP segments, there's a variation there between Wynn Palace and Wynn Macau.
Interesting.
And those numbers also differed from what they had projected.
So like two different stories playing out in Macau.
Yeah.
Wynn Palace riding a wave. Wynn Macau maybe hitting a little bit of a slowdown. What could explain this? Well, maybe it has something to do with those changing gambling trends we were talking about earlier.
Right. You mean that shift we talked about from the VIP gamblers to the premium mass?
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe Wynn Palace is just better equipped to attract this growing market.
Yeah, and Wynn Macau maybe is still more reliant on those VIPs who aren't returning as much.
So Wynn Palace is attracting the new wave, and Wynn Macau is maybe missing out.
It's a possibility.
Okay.
Definitely something to consider as we dig deeper into Wynn's overall Macau strategy.
Yeah. So Macau's giving us some mixed signals. Let's see how things are going in Vegas, and we'll touch on Encore Boston Harbor.
Sure.
So Vegas, they had a slight increase in revenue in Q4.
Okay.
While Encore Boston Harbor saw a slight dip.
All right.
But both properties actually had a decrease in adjusted property EBITDA for the quarter.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is that table games win percentage in Vegas for Q4 2024, it was unusually high. I mean, it exceeded even their own expectations. Makes you wonder if that's a one-time thing or if it's a sign of a real shift in how customers are behaving.
Like, is it a blip on the radar or is it a trend?
Right. It's worth looking into.
Yeah. Okay. And looking ahead, Wynn has that new venture, Wynn Al Marjan Island.
Ah, yes.
This massive resort being built in the UAE.
Right.
The report says construction is moving along.
Okay.
They're expecting it to open sometime in 2027. They invested another $99 million in Q4.
Yeah.
Bringing their total investment so far to $631.7 million.
That's a serious commitment.
Yeah.
I mean, this move into the UAE it's a pretty bold move for Wynn.
Yeah.
Takes them beyond Macau and the U.S. and into a whole new market.
Yeah.
I mean, the UAE is becoming a huge hub for luxury tourism. So for Wynn, this is a huge opportunity.
It's like they're planting a flag in a whole new world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
Before we start exploring that new frontier, let's look at their financials back home.
Good point.
So in Q4 2024, Wynn repurchased $200 million worth of their stock, and they declared a dividend of $0.25 per share payable on March 5th, 2025.
So 2 moves there, the share buybacks and the dividends. I mean, that shows a lot of confidence in their financial position. Buying back shares can often boost the stock price.
Right.
And those dividends, they're a way of returning value directly to their shareholders.
So they're saying, hey, we're doing well and we want you to benefit too.
Right.
Exactly, yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier that there were some interesting nuggets buried in the supplemental data.
Oh, yeah.
Pages 9 through 12. Anything that caught your eye?
Well, a few things stood out. For example, Wynn Palace maintained incredibly high occupancy rates.
Wow.
Their rooms were consistently booked. Over at Wynn Macau, the slot machine win percentage saw a big jump.
Really?
Yeah. And in Vegas, their average daily rate for the year was higher.
Okay.
So they were able to charge more for their room.
So people are clamoring to stay at Wynn Palace.
Right.
So slots are hot in Macau and they're commanding top dollar in Vegas.
Yeah, it's a pretty good combination.
Yeah. It sounds like a winning recipe. But we got to look beyond those surface level numbers, right?
Yeah. I mean, those details can reveal some underlying trends.
Yeah.
You know, about the preferences among the gamblers at different Wynn properties.
And that brings us to the big question.
Yeah.
How is Wynn adapting to these shifting trends? Are they staying ahead of the curve, or are they at risk of falling behind?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's what we're going to dig into in part 2 of our deep dive.
All right. Stay tuned.
So picking up where we left off, let's talk more about how Wynn achieved that record-breaking adjusted property EBITDA for the year.
Back to those record profits. They did well in Vegas, but it can't just be luck at the tables.
Right.
There's got to be more to it than that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's not just luck. Wynn has always been focused on attracting that high-end customer.
Right.
They invest a lot in creating a luxurious experience. Think top-notch accommodations, amazing restaurants, and entertainment. That goes beyond just the casino. So it's not just about the gambling. It's about the whole experience, the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. It's about creating a world that people want to be a part of.
Right. And if they can get those guests to spend a little more on all those extra things, well, that means higher profits.
Right, exactly.
And that higher average daily rate we talked about in Vegas, that shows they're doing it right.
Yep. People are willing to pay a premium for that Wynn experience.
So they're getting that premium pricing.
They are.
But what about Macau? You know, we saw those mixed results. Wynn Palace did well, Wynn Macau, not so much.
Right.
What's your take on that market?
Well, it does seem like those 2 properties are telling 2 very different stories.
Yeah, and I wonder if it goes back to that evolution we were talking about in the Macau gambling scene. They've always been known for their VIP gamblers.
Right.
But now we're seeing this shift to that premium mass segment. These are still high rollers, but maybe not quite at that VIP level.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Macau is such a unique market, and that shift to premium mass is definitely having an impact.
So Wynn Palace is maybe better positioned to capture these new premium mass players.
Possibly, while Wynn Macau is still more reliant on those VIPs.
Right, and those VIPs may not be coming back in the same numbers.
Exactly. And remember, Wynn Palace saw that revenue increase, while Wynn Macau saw it decrease.
Yeah.
And if we look back at those table game win percentages, you know, we can see that the 2 properties perform differently in those different segments.
Interesting.
Mass market versus VIP, it's clear they're each catering to a slightly different clientele.
Right. And right now, it seems like Wynn Palace is winning that popularity contest.
Yeah, you could say that. But there's got to be more to the Macau story.
Right. What about the impact of the Chinese government crackdown on all that corruption?
Oh, yeah.
And capital flight. That had to have an impact on the VIP scene in Macau.
Oh, absolutely. We can't forget about the political and regulatory landscape when we're looking at Macau. I mean, that crackdown definitely had a chilling effect on those VIP gamblers. It's made it harder for those high rollers to move their money around, which means they're probably not willing to gamble as much.
So Wynn's dealing with these shifting trends in Macau. And they're also facing pressure from the Chinese government. It's like they're playing a high-stakes game on multiple fronts.
They are, and it really highlights how adaptable they need to be. I mean, the gaming industry is constantly changing, Wynn has to adjust their strategies if they want to stay ahead of the game.
Speaking of adapting,
Yeah.
let's talk about that new development in the UAE.
Okay.
We talked about how it diversifies their portfolio geographically.
Yeah.
But what's the bigger picture here? Why the UAE?
Well, the UAE is practically synonymous with luxury. It's attracting more and more of those high net worth individuals that Wynn targets.
It's like a playground for the ultra-wealthy.
Exactly. And they're betting they can replicate their success in that luxury market.
Okay. But the UAE is very different from Vegas or Macau.
True.
And that luxury resort market is already super competitive.
Yeah, you're right. There are definitely risks involved here. Wynn's going to have to walk a tightrope.
Right. They need to tailor their offerings to this new market, but also find a way to stand out.
Exactly. It's like entering a whole new game with a whole new set of rules.
They've got a few years before that 2027 opening to figure it out. But they also have to stay focused on their current operations.
Right.
We've talked about Macau, but are there any other potential roadblocks they could face in the coming year?
Well, one thing that always worries me is the overall economy.
Yeah.
You know, global growth has been slowing down, and there's talk of a possible recession. If people start tightening their belts, that could definitely affect discretionary spending.
Yeah. Things like travel and entertainment.
Exactly. And Wynn would be especially vulnerable to that kind of economic downturn.
Because they target the luxury market.
Right.
And when money gets tight, luxury is the first to go.
Luxury is often seen as expendable.
Yeah.
So Wynn needs to be ready for any economic storms that might come their way.
Plus, they've got a lot of debt on their books.
That's true. That debt could become a real problem if interest rates start to rise.
Yeah. And they took on that debt to finance their growth plans, including that massive project in the UAE.
Exactly. It's a calculated risk for sure, but it definitely adds another layer of uncertainty.
So Wynn's on this tightrope. They're celebrating record profits, but they've got some real challenges ahead, both in the short term and the long term. They need to figure out Macau, conquer the UAE, and weather any economic storms.
You got it. It's a complicated situation with lots of moving pieces.
Lots of balls in the air.
Yeah.
So the big question is, can they keep this momentum going?
Can they achieve those ambitious growth goals? That's the question.
Yeah, that's the real question. Can they sustain this and reach those goals? It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, it really is. It's like they're entering a whole new chapter.
So we've talked about their big bet on the UAE, but what other moves are they making? What's on their agenda?
Well, one area they're really focusing on is digital. They're putting a lot of effort into beefing up their online gaming and sports betting platforms.
So they're not just focusing on those physical casinos.
Yeah.
They're realizing that the future might be online.
Yeah, exactly. The online gaming market is just booming right now. It's a smart move for Wynn to tap into that.
It's like they're casting a wider net, trying to reach a whole new generation of players.
Right. And it also gives them some protection against any downturns in the traditional casino market.
So people are cutting back on travel because the economy is shaky.
Exactly. They might still be playing online.
So it's like a safety net.
Right, exactly. A way to hedge their bets. And they're not just offering online gambling, they're trying to make that experience even more engaging.
Oh, how so?
Think virtual reality casinos, personalized promotions, loyalty programs that connect your online and offline activity.
Wow, so they're really blurring the lines between the real world and the virtual world. It's like they're creating a Wynn metaverse. You can have that same luxury experience whether you're physically at one of their resorts or just logging on from your computer.
Yeah, that's the idea. And it's not just Wynn. A lot of companies in the gaming industry are doing this. The lines between physical and digital are getting blurrier and blurrier.
It's amazing how technology is changing everything.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Wynn's success still comes down to the customer experience.
Right.
You can't replace that personal touch.
Absolutely. Technology can make things better, but it can't replace that human connection. Wynn has always been known for great service. They need to keep that up.
So, big picture, what do you think about Wynn's future? Are you optimistic?
I'd say cautiously optimistic. They have a strong brand, a history of success, and a solid financial base. And those strategic moves they're making, like the expansion to the UAE and the digital push show, they're thinking long term.
So they're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, they're playing the long game. But they still face some big challenges, things they can control and things they can't. It's not going to be easy.
Sounds like a wild ride ahead.
For sure. But here's something to think about. What about that Wynn Al Marjan Island opening in 2027? Will it be a success? Will it bring a whole new wave of tourists to the UAE, or will it just fizzle out?
Those are the big questions. The answers will have a huge impact on Wynn's future.
Yeah, the next few years are going to be critical for Wynn. It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Wynn's latest results. We've covered a lot today, from their record profits to their digital strategy and their ambitious expansion plans.
My pleasure. And remember, keep exploring these topics. Don't just take our word for it. Do your own research and see what you find.
That's right. The business world is constantly changing. So stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.